Hello and welcome to another episode of To Be Perfectly Honest, Watchmen Edition. And today we're talking about episode 5. And with me, I have Eric.
How's it going, guys? How you doing?
And this is a pretty great one. I got to say, out of all the episodes we've watched lately, this one really speaks to me.
This one's awesome.
We said this about episode, I think it was 3. We're like, hey, if this is the first one I watched, I would have been like, all about this, right? Yeah. That kind of gave us that connection back to the Watchmen. With this one, man, I'm just really ready for what's going on, and I really like how they leaned into the whole, Squid in Manhattan thing.
I like this. They steered into it instead of completely removing it, like in the movie.
100%. Another thing that I really realized too, liking this one and liking 3 is 3 was all about characterization, right? So it was all about, we have our FBI agent who used to be Silk Spectre, and then the comedian, and we learn kind of a little bit about her past. We have that kind of running joke throughout the whole thing. So we get a lot of like her character in a nutshell, and we follow her, and that she's kind of our lens through everything. The same kind of thing happens with this one, but it's with Looking Glass. And I mean, I've said this before, I really love him as a character. I said spoilers, but I think he might be dead. So he might be one of my favorite characters that is no longer alive.
So I really like these perspective changes on the character. I think it's so cool. When they did it with Silk Spectre, I thought it was going to be a one-off, but then them doing it with Looking Glass, and maybe they'll do it with other characters too. I think based on the trailer, you're saying it's probably going to be based on the guy in the wheelchair.
So when we got our sneak peek, this next one looks like it's, of course, our main character, Angela. She took all those memory pills, and she looks like she's in for a trip. So she's like kind of getting interrogated. It looks like in prison, but also having these crazy like noir flashbacks where it's in black and white. She's living through her grandpa's life. So really interesting. And we heard a little bit earlier, and I don't know if this is kind of like propaganda or not, but that these pills were used before, but they led to like psychosis. So I don't know. Are we thinking this is going to completely permanently like injure her brain?
Well, is it because like how the pills work, it's you choose what memories go into the pills, so then they'll manufacture these crazy memories and then people go crazy? Or is it
just everything?
They just bring up specific memories based on the person? Because like I think the thing that causes psychosis, it's like here's this like really horrible memory, and then they like spike your drink or whatever, and then boom, you're crazy because you just had this awful memory that which is a terrifying drug. Could you imagine if that drug existed?
I'm sure it does somewhere.
Absolutely,
we don't know that yet,
it's like it's been existing for all.
Yeah, have a seizure, freak out. I mean, I'm thinking that, with this one, I'm going to guess this has to do with the lady we saw in the last episode. That is the scientific lady that built the watchtower that took over.
Oh, okay.
And I think that probably, I'm going to guess the science is a little bit better than it used to be, right? And whatever's going on with her grandfather, Will, definitely seems to be working, right? We saw him in the last episode as well, like able to kind of, or the episode before that actually, able to walk. Looks like he's getting younger. I mean, he looks like almost like a 70-year-old rather than a 110-year-old. Which, I mean, he didn't really look 110 the first time, but
yeah, I see. He looks more nimble and
I'm just thinking the technology is getting better, right? So really interesting. I don't know, like overall, I loved it. What was your favorite part about this episode?
I think how they steered into the squid, how they're showing the ramifications of what a giant squid killing 3 million people would do.
Totally.
And so it's like, and they're taking like realistic, like when they bring it up, it's like, yeah, that would happen. People would be terrified. There would be all these issues. There'd be people. No one would want to go to New York. Which
I love that.
Yeah, it's so cool.
He's like, it's really safe now, I swear.
Yeah. And then they're like, no, it's not. And I just love how it's so deep, because it's like, here's this crazy universe where there's Dr. Manhattan, there's the squid monster, and then how all these things change. Like technology is different. Like they really thought about every little thing. Just all the political issues are different. It's just so cool. Totally. And seeing it all kind of realize, and then they don't have much time to really bring all these issues up, and I think they're really covering them well. Like it seems like a really fleshed out universe, even though it's kind of ours, but it kind of isn't, so it's just super cool.
I think it's really awesome. This one also, so Vite, we got a lot more on actually confirming that he is in some crazy prison. I'm going to guess this is something that Dr. Manhattan put him into. I think he's the only one that could have done this. And it's crazy. He's on a moon right outside of Mars, I'm guessing, right? I believe it was Mars.
But it wasn't. Didn't we see Jupiter?
Was it Jupiter? Okay.
Oh, I want to say, like, maybe he's on Io.
Maybe I'm just thinking of that because we saw him on Mars before, and he's supposedly on Mars.
Yeah, because they like talk about him on Mars, but then there's like they didn't go a full shot of it. Yeah. But he was like, you just see a corner of. So I'm thinking maybe a moon.
We'll have to look here. I want to say we do have a picture of it. If we don't, we could be wrong. But we know he's in outer space. I mean, the main thing. He's basically in this crazy. I don't even know what it is, honestly, because he just walks a couple feet more. At first, I'm thinking like, oh, once you get out, like maybe it's a big crazy sphere kind of thing with like a shield, and you get out of it. But like, he literally just like walks over and is out of it too. It's really crazy.
I think because the game master would not let him go there. Yeah. So the only way he was able to do it is on his bounds, which is up.
Yeah.
And so it's I don't know. I think it's super interesting. That's probably the. I don't know, there's two big mysteries going on right now. It's that one, and then there's the chick with the tower. Dope. So, we're finally getting answers, which is nice. And so we got the senator guy. I think pretty much everyone called that he was super shady.
So shady.
Yeah. And, so, I don't want to get too off like this topic with Vite, though.
Definitely. Well, honestly, I think maybe we should just jump into it. Okay, so to start off with, this one was Little Fear of Lightning, which is kind of weird. We only get this backward shot for the entire episode, which is a little different. But we start off and we have this character, and essentially he is like a Mormon or a, what else would you call that?
It's like if the Cold War situation was a lot more extreme, and then they're kind of like that Mormon Jehovah's Witness style. But when it comes to that, like Doomsday happening, maybe like 2012. But I did like how it was flipped because mirrors are such a big part of this episode. So I think that's super interesting. It kind of like showed, you're talking about Looking Glass, and then you kind of
that, but that's totally accurate.
Yeah. It's just cool. And then like finding when you usually a lot of times I get disappointed when you find the reason why behind a person, like something, why it's like but Looking Glass, it got even more interesting based on why he has his costume that way, why he has his hats are like that. Like, it was just so cool. And,
totally
unlike Nick Fury about his eye and Captain Marvel, it's like it can go completely the wrong direction, or it could be something actually like super engaging, and it's like more world building. It makes perfect sense, and so I just thought that was really cool.
Totally, 100%. I know we had talked about this earlier, but when I first saw this, I had a hard time knowing until he really was speaking if this was Looking Glass or if this was the FBI agent that's helping.
Oh yeah.
I was like, who is this? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I don't think that timeline makes out. Oh, okay. I heard him speak. Yeah, it's definitely Looking Glass.
I feel really dumb because I didn't figure out it was Looking Glass until he was talking to his ex. And I was like, oh god, I was like, it makes sense. Yeah, and so, but I was like, I feel like I should have just known that, but at the same time, it took me until then to put it two and two together.
I did know. So when we first start, we have it shows where they're at. They're in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is really close to New York. So I kind of had a feeling. I'm like, okay, timeline. Like, everyone looks at a certain way. It looks like it's definitely the 80s. I think we're gonna see the Squid Attack. But I was almost not sure with the way they were talking if it was after a Squid Attack or before it yet. And then obviously we figure it out. But he's essentially with a group. They're traveling from Tulsa. They go to Hoboken because they're going to find the sinners and make sure that they know their ways and have them repent. And he has a bunch of these people in leather jackets that are like, hey, go fuck off, man. Like, tossing their stuff. And this chick's like, oh, I'm going to go talk to you.
Actually nice. And then... so just kind of on a side part, I'm starting to realize that the release structure of how how it's weekly, how it's impacting my viewing experience because things are on landing, because it's like it's been 7 days since I watched last episode, and then it took me a while to get kind of caught back up, and then things that are happening. How should I word this? But it's like it takes me a bit to understand what's going on, because it's like I gotta get caught up. Like where
Yeah,
were
you're
we
being
last time? Yeah,
thrown back in the
yeah,
universe
and
a
it's like
little bit.
thrown right back in there, and now we're in a flashback and all this stuff. And so all this stuff, if I rewatch it, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for it. But
Yeah.
in this release structure, it's all these things that were happening didn't have the same impact that
There you go.
I would have had if it was on like Netflix or something.
Totally.
Yeah. And so
Oh, I
it's
love it. Yeah.
which is taking away because it's awesome, but because of how it's released, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And I was gonna make that point, just to kind of finish it out, is like I couldn't recommend the show off the first episode or even the second episode. It took 3, and I was like, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, but based on the release structure, it's like I'm not wanting to promote the show because it's like, what did I just watch for a couple one? It's like, it's interesting,
Yeah.
but I don't know if I should recommend this. And then I watched the third episode. It's like really cool. And so I'm having multiple issues just based on how the show's released, not anything to do with the show, but just how it's coming out.
I think that, yeah, it's really unfortunate that there's not more people that are talking about Watchmen. I know that the people that are in the know and people that love the genre and obviously the comic book are like all about it. But I really do think it's like, this is one of the most interesting things I think is going on. We obviously do a podcast. I do it with Maddie B for The Mandalorian that's coming out. And I love The Mandalorian. And I think you have brought this up. Like, it's a little bit like, it's very straightforward. This is actually making me think a lot. And even more so than like Game of Thrones, it's just really interesting. It's such an interesting take. The world that they build is really interesting. And every episode is such a slice of life. Like, it can be completely different just depending on the episode. I mean, we have this next one that's going to be, looks like a lot of it in black and white. I mean,
it's crazy, and they're taking a lot of risks. It's really deep. Yeah, you know those like clickbaity YouTube things where it's like the things you missed in this episode. This is one of the first shows in a while that it's like, oh yeah, I did miss that.
Yeah.
And whereas like I don't even want to knock on Mandalorian because it's not trying to be this, and so it's like I don't even mean that as a disrespect to Mandalorian, because it's telling an awesome story, and I think that's awesome too in its own right. But it is really cool that this is like old school Game of Thrones where they had all these different potential plot lines, and so it's like I guess a Reddit show where you can like go on and like there's so much to discuss.
totally.
Yeah, whereas like
Everybody has a different theory too.
yeah, and they're all legitimate, and which is so refreshing to finally be able to talk about a show and be like, I think they're going this direction, or we just don't know. And then it also, the next episode, it actually those theories are right, or the direction they take makes sense. It's so it's just really cool.
Yeah, it's not doing the Lost thing where you're like, okay, well, we'll see you in 3 seasons. Like,
you get like you have a ton of questions, but you at least get answers the next week. You at least get some, and so, but
it gives you a little breadcrumb to follow. Yeah. So we have him in this house of mirrors. Obviously, we know what happens. He gets stripped down. She takes his clothes, and then that's when kind of everything crazy goes. Basically, Squid Attack, New York, Sonic Attack goes out for miles. What did we say as far as people that are injured? Was it 3 million?
I think they said 3 million.
Yeah. So pretty crazy. I mean, definitely nothing like that has ever happened in the United States or anywhere else, as far as I know. Obviously not a interdimensional squid attack. I mean, that's insane. But yeah, can you imagine how that would just change the culture? And I think that's a lot of what this show is just imagining how that would change the culture. We see how it really affects him. Obviously, this would be really traumatic for anybody, but especially someone who has literally been preached, the end is coming, the end is coming, the end is coming. And then you see this. I mean, it's not related to what you were preaching about, but it's just like, this constant heightened sense of the end is coming, Yeah.
Okay. Well, could you mention, because it's like, it's unprecedented. It's like if you're scared of an earthquake or something like that, but there's at least some kind of history of them. Whereas this is just the first of, what? And
squids keep on falling too.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
100%.
you're constantly reminded of like the worst thing ever. And it's obviously like an awful thing like that happened, but how they're building the world around it makes sense. It's like if this were to ever happen, this bizarre, crazy thing were to happen, all the stuff around it is really fleshed out and done well, and it's like thought about intelligently. And also too, it's making it's actually like part of the narrative. Like it's cool that this is something that they're bringing up and actually going towards, because I feel for something like that on HBO, big, they're probably expecting a lot of people to watch. I think it could have been easy for them to just maybe skip over that part, or just like how they did in the movie, where it was like, it was a bomb, and Dr. Manhattan blew him up. It's like it's just so much easier. Whereas this is, really in depth and interesting.
But I think at the same time, it does make it a little bit more self-contained as well. So like, if you haven't read the comics, like you can watch this and get, oh, okay, there was a Squid Attack. Like we're not relying on that knowledge now, right?
Whereas before, the big thing I was saying was like, hey, it's a good show, but if you don't know anything about the comics, like just good luck. Like you should definitely read the comics. Whereas now I'm kind of changing how I thought about it.
Still, we are. This is episode 5, so you would still not know it for 5 episodes, which is also kind of awkward. Yeah, I mean, using context clues, you kind of figure it out, but at the same time, a little awkward.
It is hard for me to say because it's like I do know. Like it's hard for me to like. Maybe you would need to watch it, but at the same time, like you probably need to read the comics.
Yeah. Talking to a couple people, I think they get it, but yeah, it's definitely weird.
Yeah.
What do you think about the squid?
What do you mean?
Like the design of it? Did you feel like it?
I think they nailed it. I think it's based on how it looks in the comics to here. I think it looks good. Like they did it. They showed it on screen. It's just cool.
I thought it was really cool the zoom out perspective of that.
Like the camera thing that they did where it just pulls back and then you slowly see it. Totally. Like that's a really cool way to reveal it. And you can
just kind of like flip around and you like see that would be his view of everything. Like coming out, everyone's dead around you. Look and just like everything around you, buildings are destroyed, things are on fire, gigantic squid in the sky. I mean, crazy. So then we come back to present day. But we're still talking about New York, and we basically find out that Looking Glass, his job in the daytime on the books is to kind of watch focus groups and see who's lying and kind of get down to the bottom of what they're actually thinking. And the first one we have is all about New York. So it's basically a PSA for New York, like, come back to New York. It's great. There's no squid monsters, which, watching the episode through, we know this is a huge issue for him. And he's just like, no, yeah, they're all scared shitless. Do you think that was more him and his feelings kind of getting in the way of that? Or do you think those people were actually like, yeah, no, I wouldn't want to go back?
I think it's a little bit of both. Because at that moment when he said that, I was like, yeah, he's right. He's like reading the room. But then the more you learn about him, you kind of have to go back and think that he was maybe talking about himself.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And like not having to, I don't know. Pretty crazy. Yeah. So we have this focus group, and then we come back and we have essentially everybody's meeting. They've had no luck kind of figuring out who killed the boss. And so now we're kind of going through it with the actual like FBI lens where it's like, okay, well, what do we know? Well, we know that there's this church somewhere, right? We're going to go and find it. So essentially she's like, I think she says, oh, there's only 3,000 of them. I mean, come on, guys. That's a lot of churches and places of worship to go and figure out. But ultimately, after watching the episode, we know like it wouldn't matter because it's in a film studio, right? Or abandoned building with a filming area in it, right? So she's kind of taken over. We have this scene where essentially, we have Looking Glasses talking with Angela, and Angela's like, "What happened with the pills? Like you're supposed to get them analyzed. What's going on?" And he's like, yeah, I'll go, I'm working on it. It's a favor, but what can you do? And, then we have the FBI agent. She's like, hey, pop in my office for a little bit, which is, not her office. You got to think the whole mood of this precinct has got to be completely changed, right? It's like when someone gets fired from your work and then, the big boss comes in and is like, okay, well, I'm just here to look at things. And you're like,
it has to be really awkward.
Okay, this is weird.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I bugged your cactus. And what about the pills? Real awkward.
Yeah.
I kind of thought it was going to go more south from here, but it didn't. He kind of recovered a little bit from it. Was like, that's a medical issue and that's a privacy thing. Works. Then we kind of go through and we follow him for the rest of his day, right? And we see this, at first we see, he's just taking these extra steps. But one thing that was really interesting that she brought up in the meeting is that he was a survivor of this, and that the reason that he wears the shiny material is because it's supposedly proven to protect from interstellar psychic attacks. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, maybe it's not so much an interesting choice as oh, hey, this is a way for me to like cope with my fear, right?
And then he talks about how he sleeps well. And when, she brought that up, um, she was being kind of weird with calling him like mirror guy, like constantly, just trying to mess with him. Like, I'm surprised that would like actually work. It was like such a lame insult, but, at the same, but then going right to his place and seeing that he's like super secure, runs all these drills constantly.
Prepper to the max.
Yeah. He's like hardcore prepper, has a safe room, every hat
literally
that he
a
wears.
bunker almost.
Yeah. And so, it was just them bringing that up and showing that it like for his character to go through that traumatic experience makes perfect sense. It just kind of, it gives a whole bunch of context to who he is as a person. It's just really cool. And then really interesting. And, even in the reveals, that I'm interested in, they still find it's still interesting afterwards. It's not just like, oh, here it is. And then, so it made me like even more engaged on the episode, to see where they're going with this. And so, yeah, I just thought that was pretty cool.
Totally. And how well he's hiding and coping with it and lying to everybody, but totally scared shitless. So anyways, he goes out of the office and goes back to his house. We find out he's wearing, he's constantly having this stuff over his head. When he's, at work, he's wearing it in the precinct all the time. When he comes home, he's wearing a full on, mask. So pretty freaking crazy. We also see that his life is kind of a little sad, right? Like, from the outside, it's like, oh yeah, cute little house, whatever. We know he's been through a divorce. He has a picture of his wife on the wall, or ex-wife on the wall. And we find out this is the actual, the lady that was looking into the pills. But we also have this weird scene, and I had asked you about this. So he opens up a thing of like pork and beans or whatever the heck. Sad, right? Like, oh, I'm going to eat my can of beans. And sits down. And this looks exactly like the way that it's shot from the American Hero Story, I think is what the actual show is called. But it's basically like a gay porno in the middle of it.
Yeah, like, what was the point of this? I just don't know. What are they trying to show? Like, so in the guy because the thing he said, he was like, I want to see your face, and then he was like, you're never gonna see my face. And so, is there something I'm missing here? And then, like, what does that mean? I don't know. It was just Also, the beans, is that a nod to Rorschach from the comics? As he would always eat beans.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but
I think that one's a little easier.
This whole thing is weird.
Yeah, well, it was really weird. In the first time we see the show, imagine like because the two scenes we've seen for the show are fucking weird, man.
Hella weird. But it's like, okay, so there's two possibilities, right? This is either like a gay porno that he's watching, right? Okay, straightforward. He's gay, whatever. Option B, it is American Hero Story, and there's a full-on gay porno in the middle of it, and everyone in the nation is watching this, and it's like,
well, I think what it is
like,
is
what?
Based on that one episode where we first see it, it's like, this is rated this for extreme violence. So I think it's a commentary on how socially acceptable it is to have all these awful things on. I think that's what they're saying, and then they're just heightening it up to make us question it. I think.
I mean, we start this out right, and we're in the 80s, and it's after. This is after Vietnam has been won, right? So we kind of see how it's like morphed into. That's why he's like, oh, I got to go to Hoboken because it's the center of sin and sex, right? I think this like crazy, sexual revolution that happened in the 70s, it never really stopped because the war happened, because the war was like instantly won like that. And so I think kind of that's what we're led to believe is like there was really no check to that, and this is kind of what would happen if that sexual awakening had happened all the time. So maybe it is like something like well,
I guess it shows my ignorance on the history, because it's like, I don't know if like the hippie culture was like, counteracting because of the war, or because like, or if it was gonna happen and then the war was kind of like keeping it down.
I think I think a lot of it was how long the war lasted, and how big of a deal it was.
Because it was like, I remember how people are like, especially military people. I remember people talking about how awfully they were treated. Like that whole divide never happened, because you would be Dr. Manhattan would just be like, all right, we win,
boom, big dude,
and so that's another like there's so many threads of like the ramifications of what would happen compared to real history that they have to address, and maybe this is one where how TV is just weird,
and they're like,
real
hey,
weird,
I guess he was this dude is super into gay sex, and we knew that, and so we're just gonna put that on here, and we're gonna reenact it, and like it's pretty much softcore porn, but it's on national TV. Like whatever, no big deal.
Yeah,
I don't know.
like because Angela was totally okay with letting her 12-year-old son watching that show.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
That's
I mean, she's okay with a lot. She's like, "Oh, you okay? You saw his brains get exploded everywhere? Oh, okay, cool."
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
whatever.
good point because their relationship is weird. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and
But I think we're seeing this is more commonplace than anything else, right? So we should kind of feel that way. It was just weird with Rorschach, with this guy. Basically, for me, just because I didn't know up until this point if maybe he was gay, but then from everything we see later, it's like no.
yeah, not at all. Yeah,
So-
and so, but it totally plausible up until this episode for him to be, and then you see that because it's like he had a wife, but you don't know the reasons why that's an ex-wife, so it could totally be that he was
Exactly.
closet.
Right.
Yeah. There's a whole
Well,
bunch
and he
of
was like sexually repressed to begin with.
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
Yeah, really, really ridiculous. So in the middle of this gay porn scene, basically in this show, there's a alarm that goes off, and we're like, "What the on? Is this another squid fall? Is this something else?" He runs off to this bunker, comes down, presses his red light. We get a little shot where it says, Wade Tillman, extraterrestrial squid science. So like we see he's like full on into this, like doomsday prepper, like has this alarm, is running drills nonstop.
I feel like our connotation of a prepper is way more derogatory, whereas if a giant squid monster, like preppers wouldn't be seen as so insane
Yes.
in this world, in my opinion.
Probably.
I'm not trying to I think what I don't want to have a commentary on that, but I think the general populace thinks of this of a prepper as a negative light.
Totally.
Whereas in this world, I feel like if you're prepping for this, it's like, I can get that.
Makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
Maybe not when you're doing drills. What's he
like
end up
what
saying,
he's
like
doing
13 times a day.
Yeah, he's extreme, and this is 30 years later. So it's
100%.
yeah. Well, wait, 40 years?
85 is when it happened,
Yeah,
right?
so with 34 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a little extreme.
So just a little bit, but I mean, whatever. He's still a lovable character. So, anyways, alarm doesn't go off. He ends up going up. He like destroys it, like tears it out of his closet, I guess. And then, is it right after this that he calls the company? I think so.
Yeah,
And he's just
immediately
like,
after.
he's like, "What the hell? It's defective." And they're like, "Well, yeah, you're supposed to do a drill like every 6 weeks." He's like, yeah, I'm doing like way more than that."
It just shows that I like that they had this whole scene right after he was talking to the FBI chick.
Yeah, like,
because,
"Oh yeah, I'm fine."
Yeah, and it's like,
Fine.
no, I'm not fine at all.
No.
Yeah.
And then he also, so anyways, he ends up buying another alarm system. He's like, "Overnight it. I don't care if it costs this much." You got to think this is probably like thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. So then we go to this next kind of focus group, and this is all kids, and they're talking about Smiley-O's, and the kids are all like, "It tastes like nothing. It tastes gross, blah, blah." And they're like, "Well, emphasize on that." And we learn later that the Smiley-O's have no sugar in them, and it's because sugar causes cancer. So they all know this. So interesting, like
Sugar's like a banned substance. Yeah.
which it probably should be here, but
Yeah,
I mean,
sugar's the new. There's just they just find ways to hit on every little thing that's happening in real life. Like gun control, you got sugar, it's very cool.
totally.
Yeah, and this because sugar's like the new crazy thing. Like people, I think people are starting to really know about it, but how bad it is. But at the same time, it's cool seeing the show just casually. It's like they're not preachy towards it. It's just like, yeah. And they have a whole framework of a show that makes sense to have all these different changes. It's just kind of nice seeing these different takes on it in a non-annoying way.
Yeah. Well, and can you imagine? Well, see, this is what is a little confusing though too. Like she supposedly owns a bakery, right? So you're baking stuff without sugar?
Yeah.
Sounds gross.
Yeah, it sounds. Yeah.
Maybe that's why it didn't open. But yeah, what would it be like if we literally banned sugar? Like that would be crazy.
Or maybe they have a whole bunch of fake sugar, like White Monster or something like that.
Hey, I'm down for it. So we get out of this focus group, and then he goes over and he sees his ex. And they have this really interesting relationship. She owns a really interesting business where basically she clones pets.
This was weird, man.
Also very odd. She destroys a puppy.
Yeah, you want it? It was between him taking it or her throwing it away because it's just
And
so
like no
casual.
one bats an eye,
Yeah.
right? So you got to think this is more commonplace than you would think. Now, this is also, the second episode where we're really talking about like clones, right? Because we have that episode with the baby, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And essentially that baby has to be a clone of them because we know she's not fertile. Her eggs aren't good. So really interesting that we do have this technology that's really developed.
It's
And
just
it's
so
almost
casual.
like, why is it so developed if we...
It's so developed, but at the same time, there is a science to it. It's not like it's guaranteed. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
these look same, right? Yeah,
No, that one's smaller.
Yeah. So there's like a skill to it. Is that what they're trying to imply, or is it like that it's just not a guarantee?
I don't know.
Yeah,
No idea. But interesting. She definitely knows what she's doing. She's definitely really smart. And there's a little bit of back and forth with them about their marriage, and how she kept on trying to, convince him that she wasn't going to leave. And he's kind of like, well, then you did anyway. So kind of fuck you. So that's kind of interesting. But we find out that these pills essentially are memory pills, and that, they were a big deal back in the day. They're banned. They're not good for you. They cause psychosis.
So I did want to touch on the part where they cause psychosis by just taking them, or they cause psychosis because people would abuse the memories they would give.
I think they just cause psychosis because you have, memories being thrusted into your brain that you never really experienced. And then how can you tell difference between reality and memories? And, who can tell? Maybe they flash back. Maybe it's like acid, you crack your neck and you got another memory that pops in.
Because what I think is, it sounds like there's these memories that the older guy in the wheelchair is specifically giving Angela.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't feel like those are going to cause psychosis. I think the thing that can cause psychosis is, like, let's say I'm an asshole and I'm like, here, I'm going to make all these shitty memories, give it to someone, and they have all these horrible memories, and now they're crazy.
Well, another thing too could be like, oh, hey, like, okay, I'm going to give you some of my memories. Not a big deal, right? But then you're like, oh, I love other people's memories.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to other people's memories.
Okay.
So you're like taking
it's
a shit ton
it's
of
like an
people's
actual
memories.
drug, yeah. And
totally.
so I think there's a couple ways there. So it's like, why I want to bring that up is because we already know that Angela's taken a ton of them, and I feel like and so she's gonna OD on some memories.
I don't even know how she didn't choke on those.
Yeah, well, it was obviously like it was a really bad editing because she like puts a whole bunch in, and then like she just was like, why, like right after, and it's like, dude, you gotta there's you just took way more pills than I've ever taken ever, just dumb. But
I don't even know how she didn't miss one too.
It's like they're
if you put an
out.
entire bottle of pills in your hand and then like try to do that, there's no way.
Yeah, like I have a hard enough time with like one. Yeah, let alone let alone what 50 that she took. But whatever, that's besides the point.
You probably think like memory pills require you to drink a full glass of water too, like to work.
Yeah. I mean, they're extended release.
Yeah.
You gotta make sure on an empty stomach. I don't
for best effect, totally.
Like, man, those memories hit me hard, bro.
Speaking of these pills, did her grandfather really expect her to just take some pills to get some memory without even saying anything?
Well, there's a lot of conveniences going on here where he just like leaves.
He's the car.
Didn't the car drop from the sky?
Yeah.
And then there's pills in the glove box.
Yeah, what if she didn't check the glove box? What if someone else did?
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's some pills, and then they're like, they know what's going on, or it's like a person investigating a car falling from the sky.
Yeah. Or these are like a known thing, right? These memory pills. So like if the FBI agent opens that and is like, oh, these pills, sends them to the lab, and they're like, oh yeah, these are memory pills.
Yeah. So
you're caught.
I think that it's probably one of the. Maybe I'm sure people will correct us if I'm wrong here, but that's probably one of the biggest plot holes so far, or conveniences.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're at least like, investigating. I think what they realize is that they did that, and then they need all this exposition around these pills before she takes them.
Totally.
So it doesn't really make sense, but for the viewer, it helps.
Totally. So, anyways, we go from this pill thing, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine," and then he's cut to. Leading a anxiety about extra dimensional monsters attacking. We have a focus group. Basically, he's full of shit.
Yeah.
He's leading it. He's putting on this air, but he really is scared shitless. You know, and the entire time he's doing that, he has this reflectitine. Is it called reflectitine or something? Something like that.
Yeah. And the guy goes like, I don't want to be one of those nut jobs.
Yeah. I feel like
but he is that one.
Like a gust of wind should come in, his hat pop off, and they're like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like interesting too, because you see how this is affecting other generations, right? Like, which I think kind of, you know, going back to that prepper thing, I think that kind of can, how you're raised, like you can really get anxiety built into your lifestyle from your parents, just like drilling that down into you, you know? A lot of us don't have that, but if you had every day of your life being reminded of, oh, hey, there's a giant monster, like, yeah, you're probably not going to feel safe, right?
Yeah. Well, because, when I looked at what he was doing, I didn't feel like, oh, he's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, he's just, because in his perspective, he's just like, hey, you're all going to die. Yeah, if this happens and you just happen to hit it, you're dead.
Yeah.
And so, and he's seen it. He lived through it. And he just got lucky with it. He was in a room full of mirrors. So it's just, it's cool. I think it is kind of interesting that he's trying to put on this facade that he's okay.
Yeah.
But that's like how people are. Like, which I think is cool. It just seems real that he's like, that's just what someone would do.
Coping.
He's coping in his own way. They're coping in their own ways. So.
It's interesting. And then he's like also seeking out this chick who's obviously troubled, right? Like, best case scenario, she's like definitely right?
Yeah,
like
I'm
he
just
knows
saying,
that.
come on, there's like 18 red flags with that chick.
100%.
You need
He's like, yeah, like I'm crazy. So anyways, they go to the bar. They fucking pull like a drunk. And of course, she's like, oh, I gotta get my ride. Blah, blah, blah. I'm a cock tease. And then same truck. And we're like, oh, right away. I'm like, that's the same freaking truck.
Yeah.
What's going on? And we have, it's hard to see here, but we do have the cabbage falling out of the back, or the lettuce falling out of the back. And he follows them, of course, calls it in, is kind of like, hey, I'm following the suspect. Turns out that they are 7th Calvary. And he goes in, he pulls out, and I can't identify what's in this box.
Yeah, me neither.
It kind of looked like a drone or something to me, but really, it doesn't look like it's lettuce. So it's definitely suspect.
When I was watching, I was like, oh, that's some 7th Calvary stuff. That it's like, oh, that's some bad. He's like, oh, that he confirmed like that's an issue, but I don't know what it was specifically.
Well, all we've known so far, right, is that 7th Calvary, I cannot say that word. They are basically hoarding batteries, right? Because that's what they were doing before. Yeah. So at first I'm like, oh, maybe is that a thing of batteries? But I can't really figure it out, right? But anyways, he's like, okay, definitely 100%. Then this goes in without his mask, right? Which is
okay. So what? Like, this part bothered me because it's like every horror movie where it's like, hey guys, let's split up.
No,
and then he calls it in, and then goes in, and then I'm like,
well, you can tell too that it's not the cop. It's not Panda, right? Panda's the one that every time they radio, it's the Panda dude, and it's a chick.
Yeah. Wait, also dumb. I know when I was watching, I was like, he's the smartest dumb guy I've ever seen. Like and it bothered me. And then he goes in and it's like weirdly empty. And then he conveniently finds, this is probably my biggest issue, but also one of the coolest, like, interesting things with this episode. Whereas, he goes in by himself, and the only way this happens, if he did, you feel like the procedure would be, hey, found him, and then just waits, because that's what I would do. Like, the last thing I'm ever gonna do is go in by myself.
He doesn't even have a gun.
Yeah,
remember,
and then he had to find
a gun. He
finds
a gun.
Yeah, and go.
But it's obviously,
yeah, maybe he doesn't have an expectation. But then he holds him up. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. That if I have an issue with this episode, it's him just going in by himself. But it needed to happen for the story.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to lure him, so I kind of get that too.
Yeah, and he's just so like, he's like, hey, these are the guys. Maybe he's just so passionate about it because it was his homie that got killed. I can get that he's acting irrationally, but from a person that's not emotionally invested, I'm watching it, I'm going like, what are you doing?
Totally. We have a lot of crazy shit too. Like, so we have the squid eye, obviously, right? And like, what is that supposed to mean? Is that something with the 7th Calvary as well? Like, goes in, finds the set. He's like, obviously, like, oh shit, flash a light, looks back, basketball, right? So it's teleporting.
Mm-hmm.
He's this like, you can see, he's just like, oh my god. Now we find out a little bit later that According to kind of the narrative of why the Squid Attack happened, it was because somebody was messing with some teleportation device, right? Is like kind of the official story, right?
Yeah,
We have really no idea. So he stumbles in, he sees them. They're actually using a portal. So, A, what the hell? This is crazy, right? But B, what do you think they're doing?
I think they're practicing because notice how they're like, hey, it came out over here. Oh, hey, it came over there. You know, they're just trying to dial it in. They're getting used to it.
Is their purpose though like to infiltrate something, or are they more like looking into other dimensions?
I think they're realizing that because they're some of the like few people that know what Vite did.
Yeah.
To create something, you know, like he caused an effect. The effect was peace, and so I think these are, you know, the senator guy has an agenda, and you know he's gonna use this as another crazy, you know, thing to happen to unite people.
Everybody.
Yeah,
even though it's evil, it's creating lasting
it's
peace.
a really big, you know, ethics debate.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think too, like, you know, everyone else is like, oh, we can't, that technology is forbidden, right? We don't really have anything. But it'd be like, you know, early cell phones that they were like, hey, early cell phones, like, cause people to die. And everyone's like, oh, no, can't do that. And like, we would have never gotten cell phones. And now people are like, oh, hey, actually, it's pretty cool. Cause like, you can be like over there and I can like call you, man. It's like crazy. Same thing. I think that maybe they're like, hey, like, we need this for whatever our crazy goal is. And we're not afraid of this technology because we know the truth about it. We know the truth because Senator is in on it. Senator is on a committee. We find out that he watches a video with Vite in it. Vite is talking to President Redford. Basically said, I've orchestrated this entire thing. I wanted to create a lasting peace. And let me go over in the next 45 minutes how I'm going to do that. We don't see the rest of the video, but really freaking interesting, right?
Isn't it kind of interesting that the evil characters in the show are all trying to make peace? Yeah, it's everything's flipped.
Totally.
Yeah, I just think that's it just makes a cool story. Yeah.
Totally. So then we zoom in, we get back to Vite, right? What he's doing. And I would like to say that I've confirmed that it is definitely a prison. I was wrong where it's at, but he gets catapulted. He has an interesting spacesuit that he's developed now to keep him warm and has air and all that fun stuff. And he shoots out and he is like on Io or an ice moon, you know, either outside of Jupiter or, I'm pretty sure it is Jupiter. We have a satellite fly by. We find out that he is, thank God he shot all those people so he'd be able to write some words. I mean, heaven forbid.
He needed to... constantly. It's like, Jesus, like the amount of
like
these clones,
literally ridiculous.
Yeah, like hundreds. It's just nuts. Like I want to. There's so much. There's so much questions to be, you know, answered when it comes to this part. Like who made the clones? It's probably Dr. Manhattan. Why was he there? Because he said he was like when he first got there, he thought it was a paradise. So he got baited, or for some reason he liked it.
Kind of implies you don't know. So like, was it just a snap? You know, Dr. Manhattan's like, snap, boom, there you go. Maybe he was planning something else. Maybe that's what we're figuring out. 7th Cavalry kind of reveres maybe him as kind of like a figurehead and like, okay, hey, we're carrying out the plans that you had.
That makes sense because you know, they really cared about that video.
We got a couple. I mean, the Millennium Clock Tower too. Like, there's a statue of Vite in there as well. So there's a lot of people that are like really looking towards him, like this figure. It's just kind of freaking crazy.
Well, it's shocking to me how many people are revering him, because I thought with the whole Rorschach thing, they would have been like, wow, you know, it'd be people thinking he's a monster but then no one gave a crap about what he said. He just like, oh, he's a nut.
Yeah, 100%.
But then everyone reveres this guy. But do you think they're all revering him because they know exactly what he did? Do you think like
I think so. I think the people in the know are like, hell yeah. Everyone else is like, oh, he'd be a monster. You know, they knew anything.
It was like, so the 7th Cavalry it sounds like they know exactly what he did. And they're like,
because
cool.
It sounds like the senator and
showed him and was like,
and the chief, like they're like, hey, we're gonna take over. You know, it reminds me kind of like maybe Freemasonry a little bit, like where it's like, hey, the people at the very base of this, they're probably like, they know a little bit that's going on, but like they don't know the whole story. But the people in the mid range and the high range, they're like, they know what's going on, and that's why it's well known, and they're playing things behind the scenes. But to a common person, you're like, oh, I don't know. You know?
Okay, and then
Lady True.
Lady True. Okay, so Lady True, she reveres them too, but I feel like it probably is for a different reason, right?
Well, she took over his company, so you kind of.
Do you think she knows too?
Yeah, I think so.
You think so?
I think she was maybe like in cahoots with him on whatever he was doing, and then he boom disappears, and she's like, "Okay, I'll take over." Like, there's no reason for her to have a statue of him unless she actually like does look up to him, right?
Oh, okay.
In my opinion, I don't know.
Well, because he was a superhero. He was looked up to in general.
Yeah.
And so there's probably a lot of things from the masses that you would look up to someone like him.
Yeah.
And so
I'm still looking forward to figuring out what's going on with Lady True, because honestly, like, why is that clock tower there? What was the thing that crashed, on the sky that made it so important to be there and be there at the same time? And she knew about it, right?
And she was ready for it and waited. And
I'm pretty sure, now I could be wrong, but he said he's been here for like what, the last 4 years, 5 years?
But who? Are you talking about Vite?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? He's been here like the last 5 years, let's just say. Maybe a little bit longer than that. Like the clock tower, was that recent? Like very, very recent?
It sounds like it, because they're still building it.
Like, so that means she knew about it, right? So that's like, he disappears, then she takes over the company, and then she knows she has to be here. Like, there's a lot of stuff. She had to be in the know of some of this stuff, I think.
For sure.
So anyways, he gets hauled back into his prison, and basically is like, you, sir, have disobeyed the rules. And you, sir, are not going to be taken lightly. What are you thinking is going to happen?
I have no idea, man.
When he got stabbed in the throat, I thought he was straight dead.
I was like, they can't kill him because he's the most interesting. Because when I'm looking at this part, I'm like, he's the most interesting part of the show for me, and so he can't die.
Yeah.
But this game warden guy, there's something going on there, and he stabs him, and then he like takes off his thing, like, so you're gonna go to jail, and then later he starts like beating him up and goes like, no mercy then.
Yeah.
So why is he the one? But then I think there's an important thing too, because he goes like, your God abandoned you. And so your God is Dr. Manhattan. And so then he goes, and then they're like, yeah, you're right, he did. But since that's the case, no mercy then. But he's like conscious of it, because everyone else just obeys him. Yeah. But he doesn't. And
yeah, I think there's just different levels to it, right?
Yeah,
like,
and
I think maybe you see he wears a mask too. So like, I wonder if like he has like kind of the consciousness of like their fellow superheroes. And maybe like he has superpowers a little bit more, where the other ones are just like basically mortals, right? And they're like have no fear and blah blah blah.
It's like the same dynamic of us, but like this is the basic version of the same dynamics that they're trying to play. Like, he's playing the Ozymandias role, but it's obviously not as sophisticated.
Well, and I'm kind of wondering, like, if he could kill him, why he hasn't already.
Yeah.
He's making this crazy contraption. You think he would just kill him, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think he can. Or maybe if he does die, he comes right back to life or whatever. We don't really know.
Yeah, he's just part of the game. He always has to deal with them because he doesn't have guns or anything like that. When he kills the other ones, it's always like, whereas this guy is the one, for some reason, he has some kind of power over Ozymandias, but but it doesn't sound like he's gonna kill him though. He just starts beating him up.
Maybe it's just like it turns from paradise to like kind of a living hell. Then,
who knows? Yeah,
we'll find out more next week. So then we go back and we're in more reality, and we have Looking Glass, and essentially he has seen the truth, right? And he knows this entire identity, everything is pretty much a lie, and he has to walk back, look at his mask. He goes in, he knows what he has to do. He has to, per the senator's instructions, basically, he's going to frame Angela for this. Not frame her so much, but like get her to admit, like, hey, it's your grandfather. So, of course, there's that cactus there. Everyone hears everything. He does tell her, hey, like, the pills are memory pills. You know, he does give her a little tip. And he does take off his mask a little bit, be like, hey, I'm kind of you over. And we have FBI agent pops out. She's like, you're under arrest, blah, blah, blah. I was listening to the cactus the entire time. Like, she has nothing better to do than listen to this freaking cactus.
Yeah, but, okay. She finds time to listen to that cactus, 100%.
Why not? Angela's like, you're not going to take me without me getting these memories. So she, all the pills, and he's like, man, this sucks. So he goes back to the house. We have this package of this alarm system, right? And just as like the cherry on top of like, oh, yeah, remember what you just did? And he's like, you know what? I don't need this anymore. And then when he does that,
well, he goes back for it.
He goes back
and I think that's real. Like, you don't just change. Yeah, you're still gonna, you know what? I still want this for a bit. It would take like probably a while to like process.
It's weird,
it.
but maybe. But right when that happens, we have 7th Calvary come in, and I don't know about you, but
I think he's dead. I think he's 100% dead.
I think he's either dying or he's definitely gonna be locked up, not doing.
Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense from the senator's perspective, where the person that so he manipulate, and it's really sad because you watch this episode and just how many times he got manipulated in one episode. So he got manipulated by the chick in the 80s. He got manipulated by the girl at the bar.
Yeah.
To do, because she like, I orchestrated all of this and go here, and then what they do is she just takes all his clothes in the first one, and then this chick, they just go kill him. Is what I'm expecting.
Well, it's essentially really sad too, because we have this guy that can identify the truth, right? That's his superpower. But like, really, he can't, because he can't see through anything, right? The senator's like, all you got to do is this. All you got to do is this, and you'll be fine. Yeah. AKA lying to you because I'm going to kill you.
Well, it's just really, whoever wrote this is smart dude.
Definitely. So that's all we have for that one. As far as this coming up one, I mean, I know you didn't see the little preview, but essentially we're just going through the memories, right? But going forward, I mean, so you're saying, put some money on the table. Are you saying yes or no? Looking Glass is dead.
I would go all in on Looking Glass being dead.
Yeah, I kind of think so too.
Yeah.
And then, I really want to focus in on the FBI agent. Do you think her motive is just to take down Angela and take down vigilantes, or do you think she's doing this for someone else? Because we have, and I think it's episode 3, we have the senator who's essentially like, hey, like, you want your owl friend to get out of prison? Like, I'll tell you how. But then we have all this really conflicting stuff too, because she's like still obviously like sexually attracted to Dr. Manhattan. We have that dildo scene that's really weird.
Yeah. It's so many, like, that's weird. But hey, like, I think they do a really good job of showing that people are just, just because she might love the owl guy, but it doesn't mean she's not attracted to Dr. Manhattan. Yeah, and so like, there's a whole bunch of... I guess my point
is, do you think she's really going to be this this anti to our hero, or do you think she's got a little underlying, like, she's really a good guy, she's going to try to take down the senator, I guess.
Yeah, I think she would. I think what her character seems like, she's really jaded and really kind of like bummed out, but I think she wants to do the right thing. If you watch The Boys, she reminds me of Queen Maeve, where it's like she was a good person, she really tried hard, and then a lot of shitty things happened, and then she's kind of jaded, and I think that's kind of how she is. This is how Silk Spectre 2 is in this show, and I think her and Angela are pretty much the main protagonists, is how I see them. And it kind of took me off guard that she was so, like, she was looking at Angela to be the one that she wanted to arrest, but from her perspective it makes perfect sense. It's just, I'm so used to seeing it we see all the information, so like, it's just a logical conclusion. If you see you never saw the person in the wheelchair, of course you're gonna think it's Angela because she was first on the scene. There's all these
best friend to him. They had dinner the night before. They were doing cocaine, or he was doing cocaine. Yeah, lots of stuff. Okay, another question. I don't think I've asked this yet, but this is episode 5. We have 9 episodes.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Okay, so the big thing is,
that's not a lot of episodes.
Yeah, it's really not. But we got so much from this one. Like, it's ramping
honestly,
up.
3 in this one together, man, we've gotten a lot of
bangers.
Information. Great world building, great characterization. We got a lot of little bits. We got a lot of little answers. Honestly, I really think I'm kind of surprised at this next one, and maybe it will be because from the preview, I know you didn't watch it, but it looks like just a lot of the memories. It's in black and white for a lot of it. It's just like her being like, "Oh, I'm grandpa. I'm dressed up like a grandpa. Oh, no, I'm not." Da da da.
Okay.
But half of it has to be about what's his face, right? Like what's the consequence of him trying to leave his prison? Like, right?
What do you mean? Are you talking about Bite?
Yeah.
Oh, huh. I hope so, because pretty much every
because
single scene I'm like locked in when he's on.
Exactly. And I think if we don't have that, like we're gonna have to have episode 7 be a full on his episode.
Yeah.
Because
I can see one of them being his, because it makes perfect sense. Like they wouldn't make his main episodes one where he's like just killing all these things. It would be way more interesting if they base an episode around him when he's free. Yeah. And because it's like, what is his goal afterwards? Because he obviously has some kind of motivation. Lady True probably has the in-game motivation. I don't know.
Maybe there's
so many.
I'm almost wondering that. So that satellite, right? So in this day and time, I think that we don't really have the government like, oh, hey, space race, right? We kind of know that didn't happen. So it's like private organizations doing a lot of this. We don't have cell phones, right? So like satellite technology probably isn't like a huge thing, really, right? So I'm thinking that is Lady True's company's satellite, which is really his company's satellite.
She's like a figurehead.
And so maybe she's searching out for him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that being a thing. And then, but what significance does he specifically bring when he comes back? Like, what is their goal here? Because there seems to be a lot of.
We also have this teleportation technology too, so I'm like, maybe that's gonna come into. Literally don't know.
There's so much speculation. Like this show, like that. This is one of the most frustrating things. Probably the most frustrating thing about this show is that it's not bingeable. Because I would have killed this day one. Because it's
100%.
And I think that's the biggest compliment. But at the same time.
But then you'd be that crazy person that was like, whoa, hey, I need to tell you about Watchmen.
Yeah, seriously.
So okay, let me break it down. So there's basically this guy. Oh, so actually, this is actually from the comics, which is different than the movie, but just bear with me. So then we go in here, we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There's reparation. Then we go with this, blah, blah, blah. Memory pills, cloning, da-da-da, satellites, prison, fetuses that come out of the water. You break their neck, da-da-da. Like.
Yeah. I'd be like, whoa, back up. It's like you just miss like half the thing. Yeah. So. Yeah, that's exactly how it'd be. Like that's how it was, Breaking Bad. There's all these good shows you find where like, no, you gotta watch this shit. Yeah.
It's like I don't know if anyone's ever watched a lot of anime, but Neon Genesis Evangelion, like, I really love that, and it's really hard to get people into it because you're just like, okay, let me tell you this, and it's like, and people are like, okay, this is so crazy, like it's kind of like conspiracy theories.
So, like not forever. Because when people will ask me, it's like, should I watch this? Like, we have a coworker. She was like, should I watch this? I'm like, I
don't know.
Yeah. And so how about you decide if you want to watch it, go for it. But that was around like episode 1 and 2. So it was like, it's hard, but after episode 3, I'm all for it. And then especially after episode 5, because they did say, I remember hearing this from somewhere that they didn't want people to, if you were seeing pre-screenings or whatever, they didn't want people to review it until they saw 6 episodes.
Yeah.
And I completely understand why. But I guess I don't completely, because we obviously haven't seen episode 6. But
what if it's just horrible?
It's just god awful.
But it's like it's like
just like
the entire episode.
The worst thing. Yeah, like I just completely go 180 and go like this show
is the worst show ever.
Yeah,
this is Game of Thrones season 8.
Yeah. This is probably one of the most interesting shows I've watched. First season wise, like they've pulled no punches. Every very crazy take. Yeah, they obviously have a direction they're wanting to go, and every single time it's like making sense. It's like it's really cool. Really well shot. Like I'm starting to like seeing how they frame stuff, and it's just really cool.
And the music is really good in this one too.
The soundtrack. Not even bringing up the soundtrack. The soundtrack is by far like we have Mandalorian, Rick and Morty, and this are like kind of like the main like new shows I'm watching, and then out of the two, Mandalorian and this have like good soundtracks.
Yeah.
But this one like blows Mandalorian out of the water in my opinion. It's really good. It's 9 Inch Nails, right? They're the ones that did it.
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. I want to say it's 9 Inch Nails, and they're killing the game.
Yeah.
And so
it's super good. Like, and even the little parts of it, like not even like full on like, oh, this is a song. Like it's like, oh, that's like, good right there too. Jeez. Like, overall, It sounds like we both loved it.
Yeah.
I don't think we can wait until next week, but we're going to. So as always, Sunday, it's 5 o'clock our time, which means it is 6 o'clock Pacific time. Make sure you catch the next episode of Watchmen and you subscribe to our YouTube channel and listen to podcasts wherever you find them to make sure you are staying up to date and knowing everything that is in the know of the Watchmen universe. As always, I've been Corey.
And I was Eric.
And we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Guys, have a good one. Peace.